Hey, Mr. Watchhorn, this is Dylan. I just wanted to record a quick little video because, as you can see, I'm not developing in code blocks. I've been using VS Code with the MinGW GCC compiler and a few extensions. And just in case anything acts weird, especially even in class, we've had the issue of code running differently on different machines. And, I just want to avoid the problem entirely. If anything happens, I just want this to show that the code does work. And also in my report, the discussion section was getting a little long, and I didn't have the space to include everything I wanted to. I didn't want to write you a 3-page essay and make you grade that. Not to mention that some of that stuff is better served for video anyway. So I just want to show that off, and I'll do that at the end of the video. But for right now, basically, I just want to show that this is the same code that I submitted. So I'm going to scroll through it really quickly and right click run code, and we see it initializes. We get red green in day mode. 4 seconds pass, you get red yellow. 2 more seconds pass, green red. 4 seconds, and you get yellow red. And then it loops back to the start. If I hit control, we go into night mode, and it's red, then off, then red, then off. And if I hit control again, we switch right back. Red green, red yellow. And if I hit escape at any point, it'll shut down. I'll also be including an EXE, and this works the exact same way. I can flip between the two all I want and hit escape at any time to leave. So the main things I wanted to talk about that I didn't have time, or I didn't have space for, rather, in my discussion page, is number one, I chose this system of using discrete states for every possible combination. Yes, because of the reasons I said in the discussion page, but also you might have noticed there was no flickering, right? Because what I did at first, and what I'm assuming a lot of people will do when they turn in their projects, is essentially just print out the state of the light every 100 milliseconds. And that makes for a lot of print statements. And even if you clear the console before every one, it will flicker really badly. And I didn't like it. So with this system, I can have it update only when what we're printing is changing, right? So only on the transition from one state to the next do I actually update the console. That way it doesn't flicker so much. And the other thing I want to quickly mention is that if I hold control, it'll flick back and forth between day and night mode 10 times a second. And that's something that I deemed acceptable and left in, but it is bad. And I want to talk about A, why it's a problem, and B, why I deemed it acceptable. So I'm just going to bring this open, and I assume you're going to know most of what I'm about to say, but I figure it's good to at least show that I understand the problem and I thought about this, and it's not something that I completely glazed over. So essentially, right, when you have a button of some sort, when it's not pressed, you get 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then the moment you press it, it's 1. And for as long as you're holding it, it stays 1. And then when you let go, it goes back to 0. Right, that I'm sure you know, and I deal with this a lot in robotics, so I'm very familiar with this problem, but essentially, we draw out our graph like this, and if I tell it to execute code when the button is pressed, it might well execute up here. And so what that means in this context is if I press the button and it looks like this, and we send a signal to the code here and here, on a toggle, that's a really big problem because we toggle from day mode to night mode, and then we toggle right back to day mode. So by the time they let go of the button, their change has been undone. And that feels really bad. And again, that's a problem I deal a lot with in robotics, so I was familiar how to fix it. Normally, you just isolate the section of the bit stream where you switch from a 0 to a 1, and that's how you know when you found your rising edge. And if you execute code on this rising edge, you completely avoid the problem, because it doesn't matter how many 1s are up here, you're only executing code on that flip from 0 to 1. The problem with that is I don't know how data comes in from this get async key state function. And I looked around at it for a little bit, but I didn't want to spend very much time on it at all. and I ended up deeming it acceptable because it only kind of impacts the user experience. As long as you click the button quickly, you're not gonna run into that problem because it's a tenth of a second rather than in robotics or something where it's 50 times a second. And when it's a tenth of a second, you can mostly control it. But the way more important thing is that this is code for a traffic light. And traffic lights don't have buttons to tell them when to switch to day and night mode. It switches to day and night mode based on a clock, right? And that clock will only send one signal at one moment. And programmatically, we can determine when it should switch from day mode to night mode. And when you don't have a button to press, you don't have to worry about the problem of a button being held, right? Because there is no button to hold. So that's the reason I left this in here. And I'm sorry if that gets annoying. And I'm also sorry if this went on any too long, but that's all I had to say. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you for the class. It's been great.